It took me three long years to write my first book. And I'm not talking about editing, publishing, and getting my book on shelves. I'm talking about fleshing out my book idea, creating an outline, and completing my first draft. 3 years of writing, rewriting, and sometimes questioning, am I good enough? Will I ever finish this book? And struggling to see the end in sight. If you haven't written your first book yet because you feel like it might take you too long, or if you already started writing and are frustrated by the process, feeling like you're taking forever or doing something wrong, you're not alone. I'm here to tell you that you are not alone. Here's my story and what I learned along the way. First, welcome back. I am Aisha. I am a first time author and a book coach. I wrote my first book, which is scheduled to debut in 2026. My book is about finding purpose and identity and honoring your calling. It's a guide that I wish I had on my journey of finding my purpose. I've gone through the process of writing my own book and self publishing, and now I help aspiring authors just like you finally write the book that's been on your heart with strategy, consistency, and confidence. Here are 3 reasons why it took me so long to write my first book. The first reason why it took me so long to write my first book is my need to be perfect. Perfectionism is really just fear wrapped up in a pretty bow. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of putting myself out there and being seen, the fear of judgment. That fear led me to get stuck in my process. Many times I would start revising sections before I even got my complete thoughts out. I was self editing as I went along, which really didn't make sense for the stage that I was in. Looking back, I can see how this caused me to focus on the tiny details that really didn't matter. They didn't drive the story forward. Choosing one word versus its synonym didn't make me sound any smarter. Trying to be perfect stalled my progress and delayed me in getting the full story down on paper. Worrying about what people would think and doubting if I truly am a writer, even when I knew that I was called to write, even when I knew this was a burning desire inside of me since I was a teenager, right? When I finally realized what these negative thoughts and negative beliefs and fears were doing, I became very conscious about telling those nagging lies to just shut up. It's not true. Those who my book is for, they will find my book, they will read it, and it will connect with them. And that's really what I'm doing it for. That's really what matters to me, is that I'm able to help someone through telling my story, and that brings me joy. Delaying and trying to be perfect and worrying about judgment won't help that person. It's only delaying their breakthrough. So over the years, my confidence slowly yet consistently grew. It was a combination of personal growth, really understanding my identity, and knowing that I'm qualified to write about this topic. Also, the encouragement and words of wisdom from my book coach also helped me stop obsessing over every single word. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably still a work in progress. As a matter of fact, I'm still a work in progress, okay? But I'm certainly not where I started out. And that's what matters. Here's something that really helped me get over the fear of not being perfect. Remembering that my book is not for everyone. There's a saying that goes, if you write for everyone, then you write for no one. If you write to please the masses, then your book most likely won't connect with the people who really need to read it. You could be the best writer in the world, win every award, and there'll still be someone out there who doesn't like your work. And truly, that is okay. Your book is meant for a specific audience. My book is meant for a specific audience. So I don't have to be perfect because perfection doesn't exist. I just have to be true to my story and tell it in a way that connects with my target audience. And if you ask me, that authenticity is perfection. Once I remembered my why for writing my book, I decided to silence all insecurities and not let it delay me any longer. The second reason that it took me 3 years to write my first nonfiction book is because I wasn't consistent with my writing routine. I didn't stick to a writing rhythm. When I first started writing my book, I paid attention to the times of day and the places in my home that made me feel most creative and most focused when the words flowed more effortlessly. For me, that was early in the morning while everyone was still asleep and sitting at my desk. Here's the thing about the brain. It loves repetition. If you train yourself to do a particular task every day at the same time, your brain gets programmed to do that same task at the same time every day. So if you write at 6 a.m. every day for 5 weeks, you might struggle to write 300 words for those first few days. But as you stick to that routine, you'll notice that the words will start to flow more easily as your brain realizes that this is something that it needs to complete at this particular time. It knows that 6 a.m. means writing time. So creativity, it's time for you to flow. It's time for us to get this word count. It's time for us to do what we said we wanted to do. It's time for us to write that book that's on our heart, because the more that we sit down here at this particular time, we're getting closer and closer to our goal of writing our first book and publishing it. So as for my journey, there were some days where I did stick to my morning writing sessions, but there were way too many times where I relied on how I felt versus doing what I just needed to do. When I stayed up super late the night before, some mornings I didn't feel like waking up early. So I'd push my writing session into the late morning, sometimes even the afternoon. But that completely threw off my schedule. I missed the window of productivity. I missed my natural window of productivity, I should say. And really, I trained myself to not be disciplined, but truly just rely on my feelings and just go with the flow. Yes, as creatives, naturally, we like to go with the flow and work when creativity strikes, but we're waiting for this moment, this big aha, this burst of wisdom and ideas and inspiration to just fall on us, when we really should be taking control of our brains and telling our brains, you need to be creative. We're born to create, we need to be creative, and now is the time. And we do that by being consistent, consistently showing up, creating a writing routine. And that is something that I learned the hard way. And honestly, it took me way too long to figure it out. Maybe I knew it in theory, but just didn't want to stick to it. So here we are. The problem was I knew that naturally my prime creative time was in the early morning before I tackled any other tasks on my to-do list, before other responsibilities start to plague my mind and really suppress that creativity, because in the back of my mind, I know I have other things to do. I know I feel anxious in getting that done. So by the time I finally sat down to write in the afternoon, I already had the stress of the day on me, and my mental energy had already been spent on everything else. So some days I did write in the afternoons, and then others I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait till tomorrow morning. I skipped days of writing, which ultimately led to me taking longer to writing my first drafts and getting my story down on paper. This pattern led to complete burnout. Again, I'd skip writing for some days, then the guilt will kick in, and then I'll try to make up for it by spending an entire day of writing, sometimes through the night and well into the early morning hours. But those extreme sprinting sessions left me exhausted. And then I need days to recover mentally. The crazy thing is, I probably would have accomplished the same amount of writing, if not more, had I just kept the promise to myself to write consistently and show up every day at the same time. It's not like I needed to spend hours every day writing. All I needed to do was show up for 1 hour every morning and do what I said I was going to do. Get my story out there. And I would have seen steady progress that didn't lead to burnout. I want to offer you this tip. And listen, I'm talking to myself here too, okay? Remember that consistency creates discipline, and discipline creates steady progress. Okay, so now on to the third reason why it took me 3 years to write my first book. To be honest, I was living out the journey while writing about it. I told you that my book is about finding purpose. It's about honing your true identity and walking in your calling. Well, when I first started writing my book, I had just quit my corporate job, and I was trying to figure out who I was. Who I was outside of Aisha, the technology consultant, outside of the corporate girly who always chase accolades and promotions and degrees and all these different things, and really was trying to figure out, okay, who was God calling me to be outside of this title that I held such a high regard for. And that's really the essence of my book, talking about the process of finding purpose, guiding the readers on a journey and identifying the different tools that we need to really identify our purpose and to walk in it, walk in our calling. What is our identity? How do you go from not knowing what you were born to do on this earth to flourishing in it? And I was simply walking that out day by day. And there were many parts of the book where I felt like I needed to go through that part of the process of finding purpose in order to be able to speak to my readers um, and help guide them from an authentic voice, from a place of having experienced it and essentially giving them a blueprint so that maybe their journey feels less lonely. Their journey maybe takes less time than it did for me to finally get to the place that I am now. And really, I think this is the biggest reason that it took me 3 years. Yes, insecurities held me back. Yes, I needed to be better at creating routines and sticking to it and being disciplined in general in my writing commitments. However, the nature of my book required me to go through a process so that I can speak from a place of relatability and truly understand the pain of my readers. So, keeping all this in mind, yes, it took me 3 years, but those 3 years were not without purpose. Those 3 years, I've learned what I need. I've learned what it means to be a writer. I've learned what I need in order to tell my story. I've learned firsthand what it's like to be a first time author, stepping into a new industry pretty much from scratch, not knowing much about self publishing and writing a full length book, even though I enjoy writing, period. Writing a book is completely different than writing in my journal or writing a blog or writing a short story. So I say that to say I've learned all these lessons along the way, and I know what I would do moving forward in my second book. But I'm also grateful for that journey because one, I've learned from it. Two, I'm able to help so many others in their journey so that they are supported in writing their first book. And it will take them less time than it took me. You don't have to take the scenic route like I did. So there you have it, my 3 year long journey to finishing my first book. If you're struggling to start writing your first book, or if you're somewhere in the middle trying to navigate it all, don't be hard on yourself. Sometimes the timeline stretches longer because the story itself needs some time to unfold. Other times, you might just simply need accountability and someone who has walked that path to guide you and encourage you, and that's okay. With that being said, I'm looking to give a free gift to 5 women who have a strong book idea and who are truly ready to finally get started on writing the book that's been on their heart. If that sounds like you, click the link below, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon. I'll see you next week.